Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mission Employable podcast. My name is Ryan West. I'm your host. We have a great show for you today. We're in studio. Super excited for our guest to join us in studio. So if you're watching this on YouTube, hello and welcome. Make sure to check out all of our growing collection of videos we have out there where we do both audio and video. We're really excited about being able to put these on YouTube now. And we have a great show. We're going to be talking about the future of IowaWorks, or future of just the workforce in the state of Iowa, among other things, and preparing Iowans for how that's going to look. Training the workforce of tomorrow begins today, whether it starts at our schools or local businesses. In this episode, we're highlighting how lifelong learning and networking are just some of the engaging ways that Iowans can prepare themselves for change in how we work. That was written for me, so I just want everybody to know that. On the microphone with us today to discuss how Iowans can adapt to the future of work is Robert Frederick, who is the Director of Career Services and the Office of Student Employment at the University of Northern Iowa. We're super pumped to have him on. We haven't had somebody on from one of the big four-year schools, so we're very, very, very happy to have you. Thank you and welcome to the Mission Employable podcast.
It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for having this awesome podcast, which I've listened to.
Yeah, I heard that, so thank you very much.
So
yes.
I'm all about Mission Employable.
Yeah. Well, it's always great when the guest has listened as well, and just a quick plug there for anybody else who's going to come on down the road. So we're happy, and we were talking before we record, you have a wealth of information in this, and I think that's where we should start. High-level overview, what's your role at UNI, and then what's your background in education, because you really are going to be able to provide a lot here in this episode.
Yeah, so my role at UNI, obviously overseeing the career services area. So we have 5 colleges at UNI, and we have a centralized office that serves all 5 of those colleges. And so I've got an amazing team of people who actually reach out and work with each of those areas, each of those sub-majors. Also in our office, we have the Office of Student Employment. So we employ almost 3,000 students at UNI.
Yeah.
And which is great, because for us, it's not only just amazing individual experience. They're going to gain skills that are great for their future of work. Yep. They're going to get some cash in their pocket as well. Yep. It's actually the second largest distribution of aid that we give to students, apart from the financial aid office itself, right? Yeah. So it's a really important, not just, again, to supply labor for the university, but really the skill acquisitions are fantastic, for those students, because we do reach out to those students and talk with them about, hey, what knowledge, skills, and abilities are you adding while you're working on campus? So it's more than a job.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's true if you're doing nonprofit, for-profit, volunteering, externships, internships. We're really trying to help students realize this is about acquiring and applying knowledge and then using those skills to get employed after you leave the University of Northern Iowa.
Yeah, and it's so important. I talk about this in some of the other episodes where, when I was in high school, just an example, we had the DECA program. And
Still there.
Big fan of that, where you could go to work and school in the morning and go to work. Do you think that those opportunities for those students, helps them determine what they want to do as well as they're going through their degree, or what they don't want to do as well, or does it get to that level, you think?
It does. And what's interesting about where the world of work is going, and this is really the purpose of our conversation today, is that we've got seniors that are applying for jobs that didn't exist when they were freshmen.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So this idea of developing and gaining and figuring out things, and it's really about what competencies are you getting.
Right.
Because I don't know what job you're going to apply for.
Right.
It may be a brand new thing that's never existed before, and it's something that's been around for 100 years, is gone forever, right?
Yeah, right.
So then that transitional world, it's really about, okay, let's think about competencies. Let's think about the knowledge, skills, and abilities that will help you sort of be that adaptive, malleable, flexible future employee, right?
Right.
So that when the future of work gets here, you're ready for it, regardless of what it's going to be. That's a step back from back in the day when you and I were in school, there was tracks, and you're going to be, I'm going to do this, right? And you'd take classes and you would take programs and you would do things to lead you to that thing. That thing might not exist anymore.
Yeah,
and so
right.
this idea of competencies, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, about in 2015-ish, came up with a competency list and said, look, let's, as a national organization that works with career offices and with employers, because it's half of both in that organization, they came up with 8 competencies that are like, this is really the future of work, and it's not a major. It's not a specific skill. It's being a lifelong learner. And boy, was that hit yesterday hard at the Future Ready Iowa Summit. This idea that lifelong learning really is the essential skill. Yeah. And if you're thinking about K through 16, because as we talked before the show, my background is also K-12. I was a former teacher and school principal before being at UNI. That K-16 continuum is really about learning how to learn is the most important thing you can do to be ready for the future of work.
I totally agree. I got a great example for you. And by the way, Robert was talking about the Future Ready Iowa STEM conference that was yesterday. They have that on an annual basis. This podcast is a great example of that. I learned this just to do it on my own personally, which led it to doing this. And we were able to put this together. We have a great team, but we couldn't have done that. I couldn't have come in here and host and not sound like an idiot on every episode without going through that first. So, but you're right. I mean, especially in that digital field, you really have to have those skills are so valuable in the networking and all of that stuff. So great information, great insight there. Okay, tell us more about how your office can help students navigate that transition into workforce. And touch on this a little bit, but are there things that, let me ask you this way. Are there things that you are seeing students ask on a more regular basis or, commonalities? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, again, one of the things we just talked about a little bit ago was this, work-life balance,
right? Right, exactly.
Okay, students want to talk about that. And I would say that it really is a dichotomy that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
What we're really talking about is life balance.
Yeah.
And work is a part of life.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So we're reframing that conversation to say, because like an initial conversation with a freshman, for example, might be meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
Right. So in our office, we're going to have a meaning and purpose conversation and a values clarification conversation.
Yeah.
And my example is this. Where would you like to end up when you get done with UNI?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And if you say, I'm thinking I'd like to live in the Des Moines metro area. Well, that actually is really helpful because you're saying I have a value that I want to live in a certain area because maybe it's 2.5 hours or 2 hours from where my parents are, and that's important to me. Mm-hmm. So having a family value being clarified is not a bad thing. It's a great thing.
Sure.
It's actually easier to help a student who says I'd like to be here than someone who goes I'll go anywhere.
Right.
Because now you still have a huge thing to sift through. Right.
Right.
So the conversations I'm having that we had 20 years ago, which was really a career I want to follow, is now a conversation 20 years later about these are the things that are important to me.
Yeah.
These are the values that I have that give me meaning, and I want a kayak trail.
Yeah.
And I want a quality of life thing, and I want to be able to have some maybe some flexibility in my work environment, and not necessarily always remote, but maybe a hybridized kind of a work environment that allows for more flexibility, and that might even mean I'm willing to make less.
Yeah, right.
If I can get the other parts of my life balance incorporated into that sort of that plan, that's exciting.
Yeah.
The second piece would be this. It doesn't matter what you major in as much as it used to. Now, you have to be an accountant to be an accountant, or you have to have a teaching license to be a teacher. There's certain things that make sense. But you think about the hundreds of offerings that we have at UNI, Iowa State, University of Iowa, my alma mater, by the way. Mm-hmm. Our good friends at Drake, the different places, the 30-some private colleges, the 15 community colleges, all these offerings. And yet, with the exception of a few that are very specific, it really is most of the students in college right now in the state of Iowa are liberal arts. Mm-hmm. That's the majority.
Yeah.
And you can go back and look at the data. It is proven out. So when we talk with employers, for example, it's like, what, majoring in what you really are good at is actually a better plan, because what you're going to do when you graduate is learn about the things you need to do to be successful in that role.
Yeah.
And the majority of our companies, especially our Fortune 500, Fortune 100s, a lot of their interviewing now is about who you are.
Yeah.
Because the idea is this: I can show you what to do, but I can't change who you are.
Sure.
If you're a lifelong learner and you're educable, you can pick up skills, you can add knowledge and abilities. I can show you stuff.
Yeah.
But you're coming in and you're bringing who you are with you, and we're going to spend a lot of time on that. I mean, I had a company the other day. It's a Fortune 500 company, and they spend probably 85% of their interview time is on the character stuff and not on the skill stuff.
Really?
I asked them about GPA. And those kinds of things and major, and they literally said to me, this is up in Minneapolis, they said those are two metrics that are not indicators of leadership success in our organization.
Wow, yeah. I don't disagree. I mean,
I think that's fascinating.
It is.
So we're getting into this world of work now where being able to analyze, synthesize, solve problems, work in a team, be a good communicator, right? Lead when called upon, but follow when necessary. So followership is also important, right? looking at those attributes and those competencies and thinking about this is really how it's going to work going forward.
Yeah.
Again, engineers have to be engineers. I get that. But there's so many more things that are like, no, we have a lot of flexibility here and we're changing who we're recruiting because of it. To their credit, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, I was just talking to Joe Murphy recently, and we were talking. He had a meeting actually last spring on the Iowa State campus that I got to attend, and I was meeting with these organizations, and they were talking about needing more people. They had to find more people, right? And I said, well, who are you recruiting? And they started listing the kinds of people they're recruiting, and I said, you know, when you recruit only business majors, for example, you're taking 2/3 of the students at all these universities, and you're not looking at them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so they're opening their own eyes, just saying, "Oh, I mean, they're bright, they're smart, they're articulate. They can do the things you need to do.
Sure.
They just don't have the specific background that you thought you needed."
Right.
What they're realizing is, "Oh no, our processes and our organizations are changing every 12 to 24 months anyway."
Absolutely.
So this rapid transformation, you know, Michael Friedman wrote a book called "Thanks for Being Late," and it's a really fascinating book. And he's got some good insights in the world of work as well. And he said, you know, today's high school grad, a college grad, their career is walking up a down escalator. And I thought about that a long time. And I'm like, well, what does it really mean when you say that? Because it's very doable. You can walk up a down escalator. I've tried it. Walk a little faster than the treads are moving at you, and up you go.
Right.
He meant this. Our grandparents had a career staircase. And they'd walk up to a certain tread, and they could stop, and they could stand there for 30 years and then retire. Today's graduate, when they get out of high school or college, they're walking up this down escalator, and if they stop learning, they go backwards. So they really get back to this idea that, is it the major, or is it about lifelong learning skills and competencies that allow you to continually adapt, be malleable, be flexible, and adjust yourself to whatever the needs are? And that means also learning on your own. So independently finding this information and learning quickly, you know, and that adaptive ability is like, well, if you have that, who doesn't want you?
Right.
Who doesn't want the young person who can like be malleable and flexible and learn quickly on their own?
Yeah.
Everyone wants that
For sure.
person.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beauty of where we're going. It makes it harder on the talent acquisition side. Because the old filter was, I'll have a job, I post it, I click on the specific major I want and the GPA.
Yeah.
And when they do that, they're getting at 2.6% unemployment right now in Iowa.
Right.
They're getting nobody.
Right.
And they're going, oh, I have to unclick the major and unclick some of these other things and look at the person.
Yeah, for sure.
And then all of a sudden, there's a talent pool still sitting there.
Yeah.
Right?
Great. Well said. That's a wealth of information. I mean, we could have a conversation just on that piece. That's fascinating, the insight you had there. Okay, let me get to this next one. When it comes to the future of work, why do you think it's important for students to embrace those different career paths? I mean, do you think that, I realize you kind of touched on some of this, but do you think that, how do we get, can students start getting into that mindset in high school, junior high, to embrace that lifelong learning? Because that's essentially what we're asking. Do you think, can parents help with that?
Yeah.
What sets somebody apart from thinking like that just naturally, do you think, versus somebody that, can you be trained to do that, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, so the ability to acquire knowledge and to be educable is not like you're not stuck in a place where you can't do that. Everyone can do that. We all learn how to talk and communicate, and then we're absorbing things when we're babies. I mean, this is happening all your life. The difference is that when you get into a certain level of education, we become sort of the industrial complex of educational processing is we sit in a classroom, you get certain information, you take an assessment at the end of that thing to demonstrate you have content knowledge, and then you move on, right?
Yeah, right.
So content knowledge acquisition is an interesting process, but it's not the same thing as competency. Now, competency would say this: can you do computation? You know, so add, subtract, multiply, and divide, essential skills. If you have competency in that, you can do a lot of things. And besides being a math major, just being successful in life.
Right.
So yesterday's meeting, by the way, was a STEM meeting, right?
Yep.
And the gentleman who was an astronaut out of Cedar Falls, Iowa, was talking about he's not a math major and he doesn't particularly enjoy doing math.
Right.
But he gained competency in it, and as a result, he continued to move forward in his own career to the point where he got back last, spring from being 6 months on the space station, right? And you're like, wow.
Yeah.
He's like, I just knew that this was a skill, a competency I needed to gain, and when you've got kids who are like K through 4 learning how to read, and 4th grade on, they're using reading to learn. If you didn't pick up that competency, the rest of it's hard.
Same concept,
Right.
essentially.
So so competency-based education is really focused on, we're not going to age grade you and move you along. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure you have the fundamental skills to be transformative for the rest of your life. So reading, writing, problem solving, mathematical skills, you don't have to major in any of that.
Yeah.
But if you know how to do it, you can go every direction.
Right.
And that's the beauty of education. Like, we have the ability to do it that way if we want to.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, as a former K-12er, that also means on the parent side, because parents are still the primary educator of their child, right? We're just coming alongside as educators to help.
Yeah.
And so it's both and, realizing that I really need to help my kids get there. And then, off they go. And so when I love it when a parent comes and they say, oh my God, my kid's coming to UNI, but they want to major in philosophy. What are they going to do with that? And my answer is anything.
Right. Same as anything else. Right. Yeah.
Because when you get here, it's, the spaces in between formal learning are still learning times. And It's like when you get involved in groups, clubs, organizations, when you volunteer, when you have a part-time job, when you're doing an internship, when you're applying knowledge, not just gaining knowledge, when you're doing the application process, you're still qualifying yourself for everything, right?
Right.
If you're only going to class, that could be limiting. You can be really good at your content area, but it's the other stuff, right? So my department, Career Services, works in the Division of Student Life at UNI. And what's great about that is student life is about helping students succeed beyond the classroom.
Yep.
So that 80% of time when you're not in class, that's us.
Right.
And we're going to try to find ways to get you plugged in so you're stretching and getting pulled and using skills and adding knowledge and applying what you're learning in the classroom so it's complementary. So the curriculum, the co-curriculum, and the extracurriculum stuff are all combining to get you ready for that next phase when you're like out the door and on with life, right? That's the fun stuff we get to do.
Yeah.
And that's the part of the transformative educational piece that I think is really important for parents and young people to realize. It's not just about sitting in the classroom time anymore.
Yeah.
It's that application of knowledge that's critically important.
For sure. Okay, so talk to us about some of switching gears just a little bit, what are some of those trends you're seeing in the workforce? I mean, are you mentioned you talked to the employer up or the business up in Minnesota, Minneapolis. Are you seeing some things in Iowa specifically? Yeah. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think for us, we posted around 14,000 jobs on our job board in 2017. Last year, we posted 72,000 jobs. What does that even mean?
It's crazy,
it means that when you think about labor and nationally, you think about the labor force. The way it impacts Iowa is that there are lots more organizations interested in hiring people who are from here, and they may not ever have to leave here.
Right.
So this distributed workforce model is fascinating because if you're close to an airport and or have high-speed internet, you're good.
Yeah.
This idea of a distributed workforce is looking like it's trending toward about 40% of future employment will be a distributed workforce model.
Yeah. Explain that distributed workforce model.
Yeah, so distributed workforce means you don't physically go to where that company is located. So the company may be located in New York, but you live here in Des Moines and you don't have to live in New York. But you're doing work for that organization, right? But that's predicated on you have, high-speed internet.
Right.
So like the initiatives that are happening in Iowa with like rural high-speed internet, huge idea.
Right.
Great idea.
Right.
It's a challenge for our state because 62 of our counties right now have less than 20,000 people in them. 27 of that 62 have less than 10,000 people in them.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy statistics.
It's crazy statistics.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing the depopulation of rural Iowa could be stemmed and even grow again. Because what happens is young people go away then, and then the elementary school closes in that small town, and that town's over, right? Well, it doesn't have to be. With high-speed internet and a distributed workforce model, now it's like if being close to family, if having some amenities that are like you like the rural environment, a kid from rural Iowa, Route 1, gravel road, Iowa myself, right? I love living in this state. The ability to work now without having to leave and enjoy what I love about my state and be able to work, effectively. I'll give you another great example. It just happened. A young lady came into our office and she was looking at this opportunity. She's working currently as an alum in the Cedar Falls area. She got hired by a firm out of Dallas with a $25,000 raise, doing the exact same job, and still lives in Cedar Falls.
Yeah. Right.
Because she can.
Right.
Right. And now I'm sorry for the firm in Cedar Falls, but I'm happy for our alum who's like, I can have career progression, but not have to leave.
Sure.
And we're lucky because UNI has like 80+% of our students who stick around after graduation. They actually stay in Iowa.
Yeah.
So we're good in that way. But I like hearing stories about someone who, even if they do want to find another opportunity, can still do it here.
Right.
So that helps us to understand that distributed work models are effective.
Yeah.
It does also mean, though, we keep a lot of folks here who then, the significant other, the partner, the spouse, the kids, they're working here too, and they're in our schools, and they're in our community, and they're part of growing our state and making our state, a healthy, economic, wonderful, family-based, great place to grow up and raise your kids kind of a world, right? So that's all good. We like it.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid of it. Actually, I like distributed work models. It just means we have to hurry up and get this high-speed internet out there. That's important.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting how a job working for a company outside of Iowa can help grow our rural communities.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's a two-way street. I mean, we're all about trying to get Iowa employers, and I want to make sure I don't represent. But still, if we can keep somebody in Wesley, Iowa, or small town, shout out to Wesley, Iowa, for small town Iowa, then that's a great thing too.
Our urban communities in Iowa are doing great.
Right.
I mean, if you look at the Dubuque land area, great stuff happening over there. The Quad Cities, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City corridor, unbelievable growth happening.
Sure.
Waterloo, Cedar Falls. The Wine Metroplex is just, you're almost to Ames now.
Yeah.
I mean, what's after
and
Joaquin?
Almost Adel.
Right. Adel, right?
That's right.
The Council Bluffs area. I mean, you've got some areas that are, great things are happening.
Yeah.
So you don't have to leave Iowa, and you can still find great places to work. But, it's like it's both and, it's not either or. And that's the beauty of it, we're positioned as a state to do well. We just have to keep quickly as possible adapting to these new realities. A diversified workforce, broadening who you are going to recruit so you're not just getting too narrow, and then being comfortable with the idea of a distributed workforce model. All those things can be good for us.
Yeah, and so we got, I think, 8 minutes left on our video, and I want to make sure we get all this in. I could talk to you all day. Let me ask you two more questions. One, what would you suggest to give advice to employers in Iowa on how they can change their process on hiring?
Mm-hmm.
What would be your couple tips? And then lastly, how can more folks find out about the great UNI?
Yeah, so for the employer side of it, again, the Iowa Business Council and the business industry areas that are meeting now are literally doing the right thing, because what they're doing is they're beginning to have joint meetings with educational institutions, our community colleges, our private colleges, our universities. That's really awesome, because that's for the first time in my career seeing this integration occurring, which is opening the eyes of both education, which is like we need to be more malleable and adaptive and help them get to where they need to be, and they're being more open to saying, you know what, tell us more about all the other students you have here and not being so narrow in their focus. Quality of life too is a huge thing. So I'm liking what I'm seeing with respect to people creating hybrid positions and creating flexibility and understanding that, again, it's not work-life dichotomy, it's just life, and how to have a life balance and how to make that work. And that's been really cool. Our folks here in Iowa are adapting very quickly on the employment side, and that's actually really refreshing and exciting to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Loving the partnerships. Connecting with UNI, the University of Northern Iowa it continues to be an amazing place to work. We're actually coming up on our 150th anniversary here in a few years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, 1876 is when it was founded, and it's
crazy
really cool. It's an amazing place. I would describe it as a large public university that feels like a small town.
Yeah.
So the students who end up coming to our university really feel like, hey, this feels like where I came from. It's got a good vibe to it. It's very personalized yet. Again, shout out to my alma mater, University of Iowa. I loved going there. I've got a son there right now, as a matter of fact. But every place that we talk about, like even the privates, it's like, what's really good for a student? Find a place that's comfortable for you, that you like being at.
So you make it through too, right?
Because then you're going to persist. Your retention and graduation, your matriculation and graduation rates go up if you enjoy where you're at. So I like the students that come to UNI because they want to be at UNI, and so as a university that offers all the things every big university offers, but yet we have the feel that's more like almost a private. And I like that. I like the balance between those two things. And of course, Cedar Falls is a cool place.
Yeah, for
We've
sure.
got 100 miles of paved trail up there. You know,
Yeah.
we've got kayak trails. We've got all the stuff you want to do. So even as an employee, it's like it's a cool place to live.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like what we've got at the University of Northern Iowa. President Nooks, leading us well. We've got some amazing. I have a new vice president, Heather Harbach, vice president of student life. Rock star. She's doing great things. So good things are happening where we're at. Our College of Ed is growing again, which is awesome because we need teachers.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So, college of business is still rock solid. School of music, crazy. I'm wearing my Gallagher Blue Dorn shirt because I'm actually the president of the board of directors of the Friends of the Gallagher Blue Dorn. We're doing a big renovation. We're adding space. So the university is doing all the things it needs to do to be a good community and state partner.
Yeah, great stuff. You're a wealth of information. I can't thank you for coming in. We need to have you on again to talk about stuff again within the next year. And I want to plug uani.edu can get you to all of that great stuff that Robert was talking about. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Robert Frederick, Director of Career Services and the Office of Student Employment at the University of Northern Iowa. Obviously, a wealth of information. Very passionate about this. Thanks for making time, man.
My pleasure. Thank you
Awesome.
very much.